Welcome to this advanced shell scripting video titled How to Automatically Convert Plain Text to HTML. This video describes how to automatically convert plain text documentation into HTML documentation using a shell script named text to HTML. The script text to HTML is a text to HTML converter written in the Korn Shell 93 scripting language. Now, before I continue describing the text HTML script, I will tell you where to get it. So open a browser window and go to mountzia.com, mtxia.com, mountzia.com, and from there click on the download button and go to scripts, and from there click on Korn for Korn Shell, and once you're there, then scroll down till you see the text to HTML shell script. So to get the script source code, you can click on this link for source code, and we'll open that in a new tab. And you'll also want to get the README text file, so I'll open that one in a new tab. And then we're also going to compare what we generate in the README text file to the README HTML file. So we'll open that in a new tab as well. So once we have all those open, then we're ready to talk about the text to HTML script a little bit more and describe what it can do for you. So let's look at the tab containing the source code. And the purpose of the text HTML script is to convert a simple text markup style into HTML tags for displaying lists and bold text and italics, tables, headings, etc., without having to write the original text in an unreadable source format. In other words, the original plain text files or source text is going to be human readable even before you convert it to HTML. The text HTML script is similar in function to the Grutatext Perl module. The text HTML is a shell script function used to process text documents in a special text markup format, this Grutatext format. And that is very similar to just plain ASCII text. These text documents are easily converted to HTML using the text to HTML script. This script is used in things such as data center automation, business continuity, disaster recovery efforts. It is used as part of an automated documentation effort when extracting code or text from code or README files or programming and then converting that into HTML documents. So if the text is formatted according to the simple text markup, the Grutatext markup described here, then it can be easily converted to HTML and presented by a web server or in a wiki environment. So now that you know where to get the text HTML script source code, which we're looking at right now, we can get that again from the Mountzia website, and this is the source code to that script. Let's look at now a plain text document that we can use to convert from plain text to HTML. Specifically, let's look at that README file that I mentioned. It is written using a simple text markup style, that Grutatext style that I talked about, and we will use it here as an example for converting text into HTML. So this is the text file, and then the other tab is the HTML conversion of that text file. So let's see how that works. Notice that the title line at the top of the file is underlined using a series of equal signs. If we look at that when it converts it into HTML, we see it converts it into an H1 tag. And so if we have a line that is underlined by equal signs, it's going to convert that into an H1 style tag in HTML. Now also notice here that the first character of each of these lines is a blank, so it's indented by a single blank character. It has a a blank, it could be a tab, whatever it might be at the front. It's a blank character at the front. It is going to interpret that to mean that you want the whatever is following that to be pre-formatted. So if we look at that text here, then we see that the text that is shown in those first 3 lines is pre-formatted, so it does no conversion to that text. So anything that begins with a blank character is going to be considered pre-formatted text. We also see a title line here that has dashes underneath it. That is going to be an H2 tag in HTML. So we see this is H1, has the equal sign underline. The intro has the single dash underline, so that's going to be an H2 tag. Let's also scroll down here and look for another one that has a tilde underline. See the line of tildes? Well, if we look at that in HTML, we see that is an that gets translated into an H3 tag. So you get the idea of how this works. It's just a simple text markup, and then those markups are read by the script and then converted into HTML tags. So as I mentioned previously, the first 3 lines here begin with a blank, and so those are considered to be pre-formatted, and in the HTML then nothing is done to those. Those are just presented as pre-formatted text. Now by comparison, in the next paragraph, if the line begins with an alphanumeric character, then the text is treated as a regular text paragraph. So let's see what that text paragraph looks like in the HTML, and we see that it gets converted into an HTML paragraph. Now if the line begins with a tab, then that gets indented as a block quote, as an HTML block quote. So if we look at that here, we see that it's indented, and that is using the HTML block quote, and it's pre-formatted. So now let's look at some more text conversion markups that are possible using text HTML. I'm not going to go into great detail of each text markup, but I'll simply identify the different types of conversions that are possible using text HTML. Text HTML is very good at rendering lists, and there are 3 types of lists. You can have unnumbered lists or bulleted lists. You can have numbered lists and definition lists, and they can be recognized by lines starting with a blank, a space or a tab, immediately followed by a special character, such as an asterisk, as we see here. So this is showing us a list, a bulleted list, and if we look at how that gets rendered in HTML, then we can see, scroll down here, then we can see this, we can see that it uses the bulleted list, the unordered or the unordered list type tag in HTML. Now also notice in the text that we indented having multiple indentions in our list, in our unordered list. And if we look at that in HTML, we see that it recognizes that, and we can have multiple nesting within our unordered list. So now let's look at an ordered list in our text file, and we can see that an ordered list, here's an ordered list, the bullets in the ordered list begin with a hash mark, a hash character. And so again, those get, you can have multiple nesting levels within your ordered list, and let's look at how that gets translated in our HTML. So we can see here's our ordered list, the way that was translated in HTML. Let's go back to the text, and we'll see here's our ordered list, and that's the translation to HTML. And then finally, let's look at a definition list. Remember, there are three types of list. We had an unordered list, an ordered list, and a definition list. So here's our definition list, and it begins with an asterisk followed by some word or list of words followed by a colon character. So it's going to recognize that as a definition list. So let's see how that. So here's three items in our definition list: first, second, third. So let's look at that in the HTML. And so that's how that gets translated in a definition list in HTML. So it took that text and translated it into that. Okay, so I'll go through the rest of these text markups fairly quickly, and the reason I'll do that is because you can go through the README file for specific instructions on how to structure your text for conversion to HTML. I'm just going to make you aware of the conversions that you can do. So in order to do pre-formatted text, let's look at a section for pre-formatted text. And remember what we said about pre-formatted text: it began with a space. So anything that begins with one or more spaces is going to be translated into pre-formatted text. So let's look here, and we can see that our source code was translated as pre-formatted text from our text file. And now the paragraph above and below are translated as normal paragraphs in HTML, but it was those lines that began with the space that were translated into pre-formatted text. Well, we can also do cites, and a cite begins with a double quote. So it begins with a double quote. Actually, it begins with a space, double quote, and so anything after that then is treated as a cite. And so we can look at that in our HTML, and we can see that it treats that as a cite tag, C-I-T-E tag. And then we can also embed HTML code, and we can do that by using the double less than sign and double greater than sign. So whatever is between the double less than sign and double greater than sign is treated as embedded HTML code. So let's look at that. So here we are in our code. We literally gave it the code here and so that it would display in our HTML so we could see what the code was, and then here we actually embedded some HTML code in order to display a graphic image. And if we look at that here, here's where we had embedded the code with all the translated characters, and then here's the actual embedded HTML code that displays the graphic image. And then that brings us to tables in the text to HTML converter, and that is probably the greatest capability that it has, is its ability to convert plain text tables into HTML tables. And so a plain text table looks like this. It has the plus signs and minus signs and pipe symbols separating all the table cells, and then when that gets converted into HTML, it looks like this. And so we have a table that is converted into HTML with all the table rows and table columns as specified in the layout in the plain text. Now you can also embed one or more headers in your table, and so you can see here that we created a table with headers, with a header at the top. And the way we did that was by changing the character specifying the table header. So we can see that that line is different. It uses asterisks to define the separation between the cells, and so that identifies this next row as a header row. And then we can also have multiple headers. And if we look at a table with multiple headers, we can see we have a header row here and a header row here. Another conversion that you can do is separators, such as a horizontal rule. We can see here that we have 4 hash marks, and so we can insert a horizontal rule or separator line by using 4 hash marks or more on a line. So if we look at how that gets converted in the HTML document, we see we have a horizontal rule here above my name. So by putting in 4 hash marks, converting it, we get a horizontal rule. So now that you know the capabilities of text HTML, let's look at how to actually use this script. To begin, let's look at the usage message. And so I will go to a command prompt and I'm going to run the script. I'll do a list and I'm going to run the script with a question mark option to display the usage message. And in this output you can see several sections, including the program section that identifies the program. You can see a short description of the program. You can see a usage line that tells you how to use the script and the options associated with it. And then we also have a where section that describes each one of the options. And I'll talk about some of these options now. The first 3 options in the where list consist of the question mark, a lowercase v, and the uppercase V. A question mark option on the command line will display the usage message as you see here. The minus lowercase v, or the lowercase v option, displays the verbose processing messages as the script is running. And a uppercase V option displays debug output as the script is running. The next 6 options, the minus A, B, D, and W, all specify modifiable information about rendering tables. For example, the minus lowercase a option specifies the horizontal alignment of data within data cells. And so that you can specify that data can be aligned to the left, or in the center, or in the right of each data cell using the minus lowercase a option. The uppercase a option controls the vertical alignment within the data cells, and so that can have a value of top, middle, or bottom. The lowercase b and uppercase b options specify background color for the data and header cells. The lowercase d, capital D options specify font color for the data and header cells. The minus W option specifies the table border width in pixels, and so the minus W option requires a numeric argument following the minus W option on the command line. The minus O option allows the user to specify the bullet identifiers in an ordered list. So for example, the default value of the ordered list for the bullet identifiers is shown here. Starts with the number 1, lowercase a, then Roman numerals, then uppercase letters, then uppercase Roman numerals. So for example, the first level bullets are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. The second level bullets are labeled with a lowercase a, b, c, etc. And then the third level bullets would be Roman numerals, so I, triple I, and so on. The capital C option specifies that all tables are going to be centered on the page, and the capital H option specifies that the first row of all tables will be rendered as a header row. So plain text markup does not need to specifically identify header rows. You can use this option on the command line to identify that every first row of every table should be considered a header row. So that is true of the capital C option as well. Just be aware that the capital C and the capital H options apply to all tables in the plain text file being converted. So if you need more granularity with rendering tables, then you need to do this in the plain text markup when rendering the tables or when creating the tables. So now let's run the text HTML script and see how we can change the HTML rendering using some of the command line options. And we'll start with something easy to see, such as the capital C option. We'll tell it to center the tables on the page. So let's look at the current rendering so we can see how the tables are aligned along the left side of the page. So we'll go back to our browser, and we can look at our converted document, our converted README document, and we can see that these tables are all aligned along the left side of the page. So now let's run that script and convert that. So let's look and see what we have here. Let's do a text to HTML.K93, and we'll do a -C option, and we'll tell it to convert text to HTML readme.txt, and I'll output that to temp.html. And so it converted that. So now let's go to our browser and look at that file. Well, pull that up locally. Oh, now let's go to the browser. I'll open a new browser window here, and we'll say C. We'll go to Home and Scripts and Text HTML, and so now we have a temp.html document. So we'll open that one. That was the one we just ran and we just converted from our text HTML README file, and we told it to convert that, and we gave it the -C option. And so we told it to center those tables. And so now if we go back to our other window here, we see that here is our README file with the tables along the left side, and then here is our README file when I converted it using the -C option, and now we see that all our tables are centered. So now let's run that again. We'll run that script again, and this time let's use the -W option, the width option. Remember that what W does? Width is the table border width, and so we have to give it a number to tell how wide to make the border. So we're going to tell it to make it 10 pixels wide. We're going to convert the same README file and output it to the temp.html file again. So there it ran. So let's go back now to the browser and look at that same file. I'll just refresh the file, and now we see I didn't run it with the -C option this time. I only ran it with the -W10 option, and we see the tables now have a 10 pixel border. So they're no longer centered, but they do have a 10 pixel border. So now let's go ahead and do that again, and this time we'll add some color to it. Let's leave the 10 pixel border, and let's do a background color of light green and a header background of red. And we'll leave that. We're converting again the README file, and we're going to send the output to temp.html. Okay, so it ran. Let's go look at how it rendered that again. So here is our file. Let's refresh that to reread the temp file, and now we see that our table has green background for the data cells. We also see that it has a red background for the header cells, which is what we specified on our command line. Look at our command line. So we had a 10 pixel border, light green on the data cell background, red on the header background. And so we see we've got our 10 pixel border, green for our data cells, red for our header cells. So that is it on how to use the text HTML script to convert a plain text document into HTML. So again, the location, I'll do that from the beginning again. Go to mountzia.com, and from there you can go to download and scripts, and then click on Korn for Korn Shell, and then scroll down in that list for the text to HTML script, and then you can download the source code there. You can download that README text file there, and you can download the README HTML file there. Now really all you need is the source code and the text file, because you can use that text file for experimenting and converting and instructions on how to create your own text files, your own Grutatext markup files. So that is it on how to automatically convert plain text to HTML. And as you can see, under Mountzia on download scripts and under Korn, you can see that there are lots and lots of scripts out there, and there are an increasing number of videos that I'm creating for each of these scripts that is here. So if you would like to see how to create scripts and run a variety of different types of scripts, there's lots of information here. That is the end of this video. Thank you for listening and watching.